everyone, I'm coming for the energy reading of the week starting tomorrow, the 6th of January. I'm going to pull a card from this deck called the Healing Burnout with the Angels deck. I'm going to start by shuffling. If anybody's watching live, feel free to comment underneath. If not, you can watch on the replay. I always end up uploading these videos on YouTube as well, so even if the algorithm doesn't show you this video on Facebook and LinkedIn where I'm most active, you'll be able to catch up on YouTube anyway. Right, so what does the energy of the week support? And this week, this is an interesting one. I'm not going to say that it supports denial. It's the opposite. So the card that came out is denial, which means you're going to start looking at things that you have been in denial of up to now. And the legend says you are avoiding the truth. So we can be in denial for so many different reasons. It's very easy for us not to see the truth or not to accept the truth. But there can be a lot of different reasons. I'm going to say, for one, is that our minds are very powerful, especially our ego. Our ego loves to lie to us. I've had mine lie to me many, many times where it's given me excuses for even my own behavior, and I believed the lies that it told me. So until one day I was ready to hear otherwise. Maybe someone called me out. I don't have any specific example in mind to share with you, but it's important for us to realize that just because we think something doesn't mean it's the truth. So I suppose this card is inviting us to seek the truth in ourselves. Sometimes we even lie to ourselves, and it can be a protection mechanism. I'm not saying it's necessarily wrong. It can delay if we're not ready to look into something, if we're not ready to dig in or take action on the things that we know we need to have to take action. So I suppose this week is going to be the time when the energies are going to help you overcome all these obstacles or all the things in your mind that are stopping you from taking action or looking at the truth. Does this mean that it could also mean that a lot of people will be in denial this week, but they might be confronted by the truth. And if that happens to you, I'm going to ask you not to be defensive, right? Don't judge yourself for being in denial. As I said, it's a protection mechanism for the most part. And often it's trying to protect us from the consequences of our own acts. And yes, there's a moral case for saying people should always be responsible for what they do. And I agree with that. But at the same time, we're human, and sometimes we have fears that come up around the things that we've done, or maybe the consequences we might feel are going to be devastating. Now, the reason I'm laughing is because I've just been watching this show called The Mentalist, where there's all these murders happening, and of course, when you kill someone, you want to hide the truth. You're in denial as well, and you might even say, I did it because they made me do it. This is extreme, okay? But I've had that at times in my life where I didn't want to take responsibility for what I did, and I said, yeah, that person made me do it because they made me mad, or I couldn't tell them the truth. And I think this can actually lead to burnout, because when we're lying to ourselves, we hold that energy. We know that we're not aligned with what's really happening. And as I said, no judgment on my part, because I'm very fallible, and even though I strive for a certain ethics level and conduct, when the rubber hits the road, things can be very different. Take, for example, during a divorce. You might want to act in a noble way, but at some point, maybe your fear of not having enough, maybe your resentment for the other person not to love you anymore if they are the ones who are leaving you will make you act out. And this is where you can see that words don't always match behavior. We can have the best of intents and we can think of ourselves as a certain kind of person, but it's our actions that are actually going to reveal the truth of who we truly are. And when there's a gap between the two, and I think for most of us there are going to be some gaps here and there, maybe not a lot of gaps. Hopefully all these gaps you'll close as you become more self-aware and as you work on your self-development. But that's part of what being human is. And most of it usually comes from difficulty we've experienced in the past that have created these fears or these insecurities or that self-doubt. Very often, for example, when people don't speak out about something, about a problem, it's because they feel that maybe they will not be heard, or it's because they think it's not going to make a difference. And they're not often true, they're not often right about it. It's just what they believe is going to happen. So perhaps also what I want you to look into is to challenge your beliefs, challenge what you think are going to be the consequences of something if you show up, or if you speak up, or if you take responsibility for what you've done. Now, I realize that in societies like the American society, North American, I'm talking US of A, because it's culture of litigation, people resist even more accepting responsibility because then they're afraid that everything is going to be taken from them. Whereas I think in European countries, that culture is not as strong. So it's a lot easier to accept responsibility for something without fearing that you're going to be taken to court and that it's going to be a horrible process and everything else. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I also want to talk about the denial that sometimes our relationships are not ideal. Maybe it's a romantic relationship, maybe you're in an abusive relationship, and that's quite typical for the person being abused to be in denial. You constantly give excuses for the other person's behavior. Because you want them to change, and you're not accepting maybe the fact that they will never change, and that it's just a cycle of being promised that things will get better and it doesn't. I've been in these cycles myself and exactly how they work, but it takes an incredibly long period of time for you to walk out of that denial. So I suppose there's an aspect of this message today for people who are in an abusive relationship who don't even recognize the abuse, and so they're in denial, but that denial also protects them from perhaps they don't feel they're safe to leave that relationship. And if that's the case for you, I would really encourage you to seek out some help and to get to a safe place as soon as you can. There's always more help and support than you think there is, okay? So this is a bit my message for today. If you see this video, there's something you're in denial about, and I'm inviting you to face reality. Now, it could be that you just can't see the reality, and in that case, what I'm going to ask is for the universe to show you where you're in denial. And it could be that one of your friends is going to come up to you and say, look, I've been meaning to tell you for a very long time, this is what's really happening. I can see that you can't see it, but I can, and because I'm such a good friend, I'm going to tell you what's true. You might not react very well to it, and obviously always question the intention of the friend and that they really have your best interest at heart. But if it's someone that's trustworthy and they say that to you, this week is the week where you'll be able to receive that information and maybe even act on it. So please do, because it's going to be so much easier for you to get out of that denial. Does that make sense? And as I said, it can lead to burnout, because either you're putting up with a situation that's impossible, or that is draining you, or that is really difficult because maybe you don't think you can get out of it, either that situation or that relationship, but actually it's probably going to be a lot easier than you think. So that's my message for today. I found a way to keep in the 10 minutes without screaming in your ears with, with an alarm. My watch has done it very well. So I'll speak to you again next week. Bye for now.